Okay, this video is how to gain weight fast. I realize that the vast majority of people want to lose weight, but the idea of gaining weight, there's a reason why this comes up as being a little funny, is, people say, oh, MSG is fine, eggs are good food, but in reality, you feed eggs to research animals to cause atherosclerosis. And to fatten up animals, MSG is helpful to make the mice get fast quickly, for example. Now, there's some other funny things about it. I'm going to show you a couple papers on it in just a moment. The higher the percentage of calories from fat, the fatter the population is. For example, when Dr. McDougall wanted to gain weight, he was eating nuts, okay? Chef AJ, for example, said she couldn't lose the weight until she quit the nuts. Nuts are like, 70 to 90% fat. Other people I've heard, have told me the same thing. When they were eating the nuts, they could not control their blood pressure. They could not control their body weight, for example. There's some good videos on nuts. If you go to VegSource YouTube channel, they've got really good stuff about some of the details about nuts and blood flow and whatnot. Like I said, to cause atherosclerosis, you can feed them eggs. To cause insulin resistance, you feed animals fat, like sat fat in particular. To fatten up animals, MSG helps. And, the obvious reason would be MSG tastes good. You'll eat more of it. But there's other mechanisms as well. If you put more salt on the food, it tastes better. People eat more. They can gain weight. If you fry food, it'll often taste very good. People eat more, they gain weight. When there's estrogenic chemicals involved, estrogen itself is a fat storage hormone. And people, it tells the body that the estrogen levels go up when a woman is pregnant, and it tells the body to store weight. And the baby might need that for energy. Estrogenic chemicals can potentially help a person to gain weight, like, atrazine sprayed on the corn, for example. It's also a mitochondrial inhibitor. Who knows? Maybe some of these goitrogenic foods might have a weight-gaining effect. If you throw in some high fructose corn syrup on a soda pop, that'll also increase uric acid. Can help a person gain weight if they wanted to. Okay, let me show you. There's some papers that were a little bit interesting. Umami, which is MSG, induced obesity. But, to me, MSG is kind of meaningless. What really matters is the glutamate. It's not the MSG that matters. And nowadays I got tons of stuff that's MFG, manufactured free glutamate, where they just chop up a protein that has a lot of glutamate residues in it, and then they free up those individual glutamates, and those will have the effect on stimulating the taste receptors. And when it's a large amount coming as a bolus, that can overwhelm the ability of the gut to sequester it, and then it can get increased access to the brain. But just to show you some of these things, MSG induces obesity, hypothalamic inflammation, and central leptin resistance in mice. Okay, umami foods induce obesity and metabolic syndrome. Okay, and then they also talk about how you can also make animals fat by adding, boluses of fructose, and sodium also can affect it. So, we're kind of getting back to the idea of the bliss point. How much salt do you have to titrate in there? How much frying or oil or fat do you titrate in there? And how much MSG type whatnot and the food texture in the mouth? This is how the food companies figure this out. Oh, I wanted to move my picture away here. And here's another study. This is going back to 1975, using MSG to fatten up rodents. They also mentioned some of the original work on MSG, like by Olney, in 1969. He saw it could cause destruction of neurons in the brain, for example, in the hypothalamus with MSG. So it's been known for a long time because glutamate's 90% of the brain excitatory neurotransmitters. So when that's why the gut sequesters it away from the brain. But in real high bolus amounts, it can potentially get past the sequestering and past the blood-brain barrier and cause brain damage. I would worry just about it being an excitotoxin, and by itself not necessarily doing that much. But when you add it with a whole bunch of other things like caffeine, psychological stress, I would think it's potentially a pretty significant problem. Interplay between MSG and metabolic disorders. And again, to me, it's not MSG, it's glutamate. So if it's manufacturer-free glutamate, that hasn't caught up yet in the literature, but the same thing's going on. You get increased glutamate into the blood, increased glutamate into the brain. What I thought was interesting about this article here is they show that, let's see. Yes, MSG is associated with increased risk of obesity, and obesity is associated with increased risk of hypertension, diabetes, atherosclerosis, and cancer. So that's bad. But here's where it's interesting. The mechanism by which MSG induces obesity, it involves induction of a hypothalamic lesion. It makes a lesion, a damaging thing in your brain, in your hypothalamus, your hunger control center. Hyperlipidemia, elevated blood lipids, oxidative stress, meaning more oxidants than antioxidants in your cells, leptin resistance, and then increased expression of peroxisome proliferated activated receptors, PPARs, like the PPAR gamma. That's what, and the estrogens can do that as well. So basically, multiple mechanisms by which it can worsen obesity. That's another reason why you don't want to eat processed food, because it'll have a tendency to have MSG or MFG in it, very often. They also put MSG into tobacco to get smokers to like it. And they feel that increases the risk of cancer, according to this article here. Oh, wait, was I on top of something? Let's see. Oh, here's another article that when you've got obesity, that, of course, is a risk factor for diabetes. So is high-fat diets. But it's also a risk factor to have elevated uric acid. And high-fructose corn syrup can elevate blood uric acid levels. Also, eating meats can do it as well. So I think that's about it. I thought that was a little bit interesting, some of that stuff about the glutamate.